Hey there, welcome to the REI Conversion Podcast, where each episode we discuss strategies and digital tools to help you launch, automate, and scale your real estate investing business. Learn how to run your investing business remotely, find out ways to automate your business to better utilize your time, and learn what other successful investors are implementing so you can get to the next step closer to your investing goals. And I'm your host and founder of REI Conversion, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's Jesse here from the REI Conversion Podcast. Thank you to all of you who are joining in live today. And obviously, those that are listening at a later time or watching this on YouTube through our blog. I want to just apologize. Every time I always feel like I'm apologizing, but I'm still figuring things out when I'm doing this live. So bear with me. I've got like 5 windows. I posted it on Instagram a few minutes ago, just showing the setup I've got going on. It's a little crazy. So I want to make sure that I have everything up and running, and I'm pulling everything up on my screen. Yep, looks like I do. So today I've got a guest with me who I heard on a podcast a couple years ago. And he is also a user of REI Conversion and does a ton of deals full time. Many of you may know him inside of the land investing groups. His name is Mike Ferreira. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that this show is sponsored and brought to you by REI Conversion. So if you already, or if you don't already know, here at REI Conversion, we help you launch your flipping and wholesaling websites to drive more motivated seller leads and for you to build your buyers lists. These are beautifully designed websites that are powerful, strategic, and customizable. Now, because our sites are built on WordPress, we have a lot of power and flexibility to do a lot of creative things. We know that every one of you guys runs your business slightly different, and that's the beauty about WordPress. Like an iPhone or an Android phone, you have the ability to download different third-party apps, which makes your phone very different and unique and run differently. And that's exactly how a WordPress site works as well. We call them plugins, not apps. So if you've ever seen any fancy site, a huge chance that they are running off of WordPress. And again, the ability to download these plugins and do all sorts of custom features like live chat pop-ups, heat maps to see what people are clicking, countdown timers, all sorts of things. And here at REI Conversion, it's something that we focus a lot on too. We build plugins solely for our websites. And just as an update, this past week, we just pushed out an update. And I just want to show this with you guys quickly here. Oh, wrong window here. So this week, we just pushed out something we call the Google My Maps. This is now baked into our theme. So if you are a current user of REI Land List, please go ahead, go to your themes and update this. You're going to now be able to add your properties by location here. You can link it. You just do this all within Google and it'll show up live on here, and you can link it to each of the property page. So it makes it very powerful for you to be able to show your properties by area. I know this is one of the more highly requested items that a lot of our users have been requesting for. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And if you are interested in learning more about REI Conversion, feel free to book a free tour at reiconversion.com. All right, so let's get started here. I'm going to pull him in. Let's see if I can get this correct. All right, Mike, how's it going, man?
Great, Jesse. How are you?
Good. Thanks for, again, coming on the show. The main reason why I'm bringing Mike on the show is when I first heard him, he really talked about sort of the real side about running the business, a business or being an entrepreneur. And I really connected with him. I remember I quickly added him on Facebook and I shot him. I said, Mike, listen, I really appreciate the things that you talked about on that show. The struggles that you went through and were very similar to the struggles that I was going through when I was sort of getting my land business started up. I was facing some issues with my other business, and I was sort of hitting a very much of a low. And the stuff that Mike said really connected with me. So I appreciate that, and I really thank you for that. So like all our shows, we're going to keep this short and sweet. Mike, can you share a little bit about who you are and about your land business as well?
Sure, Jesse. Well, I've been in the land business full time since 2015, and I happen to specialize in just land in Florida. And it's not that I think it's a better or worse market than anywhere else, but I am from Florida. Well, I live in Florida, and I started off in Florida, and I just haven't seen a reason to go out into other states. There's plenty of land here for me to play with. So the bulk of my business is generally lower priced properties that I buy cheap and turn around and sell on terms with lower down payments and monthly payments. So pretty much anybody can get into a piece of land if they want it.
Yeah, so before we jump ahead here, you work out of Florida only. I think you sort of mentioned it, but again, have you explored different markets, or do you plan to always stick within Florida?
Well, frankly, I just have so much that I can do here in Florida. I just don't see a reason to go elsewhere. I don't see a reason to get into Arizona or New Mexico or any of the other places that a lot of land folks get into, especially when they start.
Yeah.
There's just so much land that I just don't have a reason to. I'd be fine here. And also, it kind of has branded me a little bit of being the Florida guy.
Yeah.
So people seem to like that and know if they're looking for land in Florida, they know where to go.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would have never thought about branding yourself as a guy that looks after only and solely one market. I think that's a really smart and strategic move. There's always talk about, like, it's funny because you say there's tons of land. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunities out there. What about for those people who are saying, hey, there's a lot of investors now. It's getting very competitive. How have you seen things kind of unfold recently? And are you still just hunkered down, focusing on getting properties, and it's just business as usual for yourself?
It's pretty much business as usual.
Yeah.
I do, since I sell on terms and I sell with land contracts, so therefore all the properties stay in my company name while payments are being made. I do receive lots of letters from other land investors. And I can tell, I open the letter, I automatically know whose course they've taken or what coaching program they're
Yes.
in, because
Right.
most people don't even change anything in their letter. They just send it right out, boilerplate.
Yeah.
And then I also get to see, with the folks who are sending out blind offers, I get to see what they're paying in different areas, which is helpful. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Keep doing that. Don't scrub me out of your list, because I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And they're really, it hasn't affected my business. There may be a subdivision here or there that gets a little overmailed to, maybe once in a while, but it passes. And so I just kind of might stay away from there for 6 months or something, and then pop back up. So it's not a big deal. And I see a lot that their offers they're sending are either crazy high or ridiculously low. And so it really doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I get a chance to really speak personally with a lot of land investors and those that have been doing it for several years, like yourself. And it's funny, you guys are just hunkered down, just get your mails out, and it's just like business as usual. Where I find a lot of people that that are new to the business that I end up talking with are always scared about this issue that there's a lot of land investors, and I think there will always be a lot of people who are coming in and a lot of people who are leaving. So it's really interesting in that sense, and that you can just continue to just run business as usual inside your only market. And it's great that you're branding yourself that way. Now, let's come to the properties that you're talking about. You mentioned that you pick up the cheaper properties. Why do you do that?
Well, there's a few reasons. First of all, I like things to sell or start producing income quickly, as quickly as possible. If I buy a property and I'm sitting on it for 30 days, I'm not happy. I don't like stuff just sitting there in inventory because it doesn't do anything for me.
Right.
And for me, I've noticed that the lower priced properties on terms sell very quickly in the right areas. Um, so that's one reason. Plus, also the low acquisition cost doesn't
Right.
burn up capital.
Right. Right. Yeah. For sure. Having capital sometimes can be a bottleneck, and we'll sort of touch on that after. But um, so you put all your properties on terms. Is that correct?
Most of them. There are from time to time people who say, "Well, can I pay cash?" And obviously, yes, of course you can pay cash. That's always fine.
Uh,
It's never a problem. Or there are other land investors that from time to time I'll flip them something at a wholesale price. So, if it's an area they like and I have something, or, there's people that I network with and we'll do
sure.
cash deals between each other.
Sure. Yep. And when it comes to terms, what sort of more of the common issues are you coming across when having to deal with um, buyers who are buying on terms?
Well, it depends a little bit on the areas. But the low price um, attracts kind of a lower, I don't know how to put it nicely. It attracts some of the same people that are buying rent to own furniture or buy here, pay here
Sure.
cars from the
Sure.
car lot. So they're not always the most reliable people.
Sure. Yeah.
So there is a higher default rate, but the way I have things structured, that's not really a detriment to me. But there are some people that buy a lot and they're making payments on it, and then they decide to do something illegal or going against the county codes. And then I'm the person who gets the citations and the fines and such. And so those battles come up, they drag their piece of junk camper onto a property and
Yep.
think that's going to be their new home
Yep.
for $100 a month, and it just doesn't work that way.
So I'm assuming you're very familiar with code enforcement then. And
Yes, I have them. I've got some in my address book on a first name basis, because we have to chat back and forth in a few different areas. It gets to the point now, though, they see my company name, and instead of writing me up right away,
oh,
they
wow.
just give me a call and say, "Hey, Mike, you've got another one." They just put a bunch of junk on the lot, and
Yep.
then I deal with it. So it really pays to get to know the code enforcement guys that are out in the field, and maybe a sheriff's deputy or two in the
Sure.
area.
And how would you suggest to get in touch with code enforcement or deputy in the area?
Well,
Look
they'll
them up.
find you first.
Yeah. Right.
The first time around, they'll find you, and then if you're proactive and show genuine concern about getting the situation straightened out right away,
Yeah.
they'll recognize you as a property owner that cares about the area, that just isn't, well, I live in a different area. What do I care what happens? If you show you care and you take action right away, will bend over backwards to work with you and not send out the fines.
So let's just say, somebody did bring a mobile home or whatever onto your property and think they're going to live on there, which they're not allowed to on that, maybe that property doesn't have the zoning for that, or you're just not allowed to. How do you typically handle it? Do you get notified, you get cited, and then you give them a call? You ask, the deputy to head out there and chat with them. How does it typically play out?
I contact them first. I call them. I'll also email them. I'll text them. I'll do any contact that I have with them. I'll get out just to make sure that it gets addressed as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I'll review the contract with them that over time has grown to have more and more stipulations in it to make sure they understand what they can and can't do.
Right.
And then however much time the county has told me that it needs to be addressed in, I tell them about half Then so if the county says 10 days, I tell them 5 days. If they say 30 days, I tell them 15 days.
Smart.
So that way it can be addressed. And in most cases, it'll end up getting straightened out. It's
Right.
only been a few different situations where I really had to step in and take some action, or face some kind of expense to deal with it.
So, I mean, to avoid these situations, are you doing anything to sort of vet through people who want to put your property on, who want to basically own your property? Are you doing any of that, or you kind of go with the flow? If somebody's willing to pay for it, whatever, we'll deal with it later. Do you have a process for that then?
No, I don't, because here's a strange thing with my business.
Yeah.
Um, I'd say the majority of people who go onto my website, find a property, and make the down payment and document fee,
Yeah.
upfront payment, I have never spoken to. I've never communicated in any way. I get up in the morning and I see that someone checked out on a website and they
Right.
bought a property, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's great. And it's that is the majority of my customer. It's
Yeah.
a surprise. So there's no long discussions about the benefits of the property. Actually, the people that talk to me the most about the property never buy it.
Right.
It's the ones who
Exactly.
do the impulse buy at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. We see that with a lot of our investors as well. So let's come over to the capital side of things. This is, you focus on the cheaper properties, so you can cover more ground. Do you sort of come into any issues with capital? And I know a lot of investors who are getting started are very, very capital conscious. They only have so much that they can invest in. What's your sort of take on that with capital?
Well, there's a few different things. I just try to regulate what I'm doing to match what the current situation is. If I don't have a ton of acquisition money handy, I'll go after some even lower priced properties where I know for sure that I can get my capital back and the down payment and document fee.
Right.
Or maybe I'll be a little more proactive about trying to get some out on cash.
Right.
Contact some of the other investors I know and say, hey, I've got these 3 properties in this area that I know you do well in. Would you like to buy them? So I'll raise some capital here and there that I need that way. But funnily enough, for the majority of the time, it just sort of naturally balances that I'll just happen to get cash deals in that I hadn't pushed that keep things going. So,
yeah. What if a really, really great property comes your way and it's more than you're willing to spend, but it's worth it? What do you typically do? Is that where you start raising capital for?
uh,
Or you just say,
I'll
hey,
find a way.
let's
I'll
just.
always find a way. Or if it's something that is great, but it's just not my usual product type, but I know another investor who loves those kind of properties,
Right.
maybe in a different area of Florida or another part of the country or whatever. I do a personal thing with them and tell them, hey,
Sure.
I've got a seller here. I know you like these properties, and then, we'll work it out amongst ourselves.
So it sounds like you've got a great network of other investors that you work with, and you don't really look at them as competitors or anything. You really actually kind of look out for each other in a way. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And I'll tell you, there's the people who are always worried about competition. I am friends with fellow investors that sell properties right in the same exact areas that
Sure.
I do. They might even have a lot, like 3 lots away from me.
Yeah, it
But we
happens.
still network, and he'll discover something and say, hey, did you know that you can actually put a modular home on this property in this area? I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, no, I didn't know that. And we work with each other. We send
Yeah.
each other little news articles about the subdivision or whatever, and it's never been a problem. Plenty
Yeah,
of
and having a team, I mean, it's not a team, but be able to boost each other that way, it just keeps everybody running fluidly and keeps everything going. And it's also great for, hey, pricing things out. If you're not sure
Mhm.
what something is worth,
Yeah,
if your buddy works in the same area, it's great to sort of bounce ideas off each other too. You never know, you could do something strategic as well, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, I think there's a huge advantage to be able to network with even those in your actual market or counties that you're working out of.
yeah. Well,
Um,
it's just a life thing that you're going to have an abundance mentality or a scarcity mentality.
right.
I'll choose the abundance mentality. I'm not
Sure.
going to worry about the scarcity.
Exactly.
Good for everybody.
Um, I know we talked about this before the show, mailing, um, and the way I'm guilty of this too. The way we scale up and down mailing. Can you talk a little bit about this? And I think a lot of people that are new getting into land investing also fall victim to this.
Mhm.
You go ahead. I kind of laugh.
It's the worst habit in my business that I have. It's the newbie mistake that somehow I find myself in so often, and I just want to kick myself. But when my inventory level gets high, I turn off the mailing. I'm like, oh no, I got to sell this property. I got to put all my effort into sell, 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 sell.
Right.
And then it'll see, oh no, nothing's selling. Look at this. It's been a week and nothing's sold at all. And I'll get all agitated and panicky.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, before I know it, bam, 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 bam. In the course of a few days, I almost completely sell out. Or maybe I sell everything. And then I'm like, oh no, I got to mail. What am I doing? Why didn't I mail? And then I got to start cranking out. I got to grab the list and crank out mail and get it going and make sure I have get that inventory back. And
Yeah.
it's stupid. And I do it over and over and over.
And
And
it's funny because sometimes when we finally figure out, okay, maybe I do have a rhythm here, you kind of fall back into that. And you know what? I'm very similar with different processes of my business, but I totally get what you mean. So are you doing anything to sort of combat that? Or are you just, you know what? I'm just gonna keep going with the flow. It's a bad habit.
I
What are you
will.
doing
Well, right now, I'm going to mail everybody in the world mode to get my.
with
So
that?
I'm
The habit is
sending
still
out
there.
thousands of letters this week. I'm in the process of sending out because I want to build the inventory back up. I really wiped myself out there.
Yeah.
And who knew? Because I was sure, oh, all this virus stuff and people not being able to work. I thought, oh no, this is going to slow down. And no, it did
The
the
opposite,
opposite.
eh?
They
It's
just started buying them up. I
yeah,
don't know how or why, but they did it. So
it's crazy. I've been hearing this from everybody that I've been talking to. It seems like it's just been crazy for everybody in the last month and a half or so now,
yeah,
which is great. Typically, this is the sort of the hotter season, the start of a hotter season, and but it's been sort of a little bit out of the normal type of thing, right? Would you say
right,
so for yourself as well?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny with the whole mailing thing. And
Mhm.
out of curiosity, I don't know if you're comfortable answering this or not, and I can cut this out at a later time if you're not. But how many mailers do you send out, say, in a month?
It does go up and down. It really depends on my inventory level. Like I said, this week I'm sending out at least a few thousand
Wow,
this week.
just the week
And
alone.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
because I
so
want to
you
grab.
do go through a very high and low.
Yeah, I go through periods of quiet and periods of extreme chaos,
Yeah,
and
and
I'm getting ready for the chaos again.
the lesson learned out of that, I really think for a lot of those that are getting started is, you know what, your business isn't going to be perfect when
Yeah.
I mean, look along how long Mike has been doing this for. It's, there are always things that you'll need to improve on, or they're just habits the way they are. And don't
Mhm.
let those things discourage you from actually starting. And
Yeah.
whenever I get a chance to speak with a lot of the new investors, it seems like it always are these types of things, the processes and the systems that trip them up. When really, even though I talk a lot about getting your website and helping you scale, and even someone like Mike is using, but the main thing is you got to do the foundation. Really, is get your mailers out there, do the basics.
Yep.
Understand your business before you start growing and automating and systemizing every single little bit.
Mhm.
And the real side of things, and again, when I'm talking to the investors that are doing this for a long time and longer than myself, and seem to just constantly get new products. Like when I work and I see some of the investors that I work with, the inventory that they have, I'm blown away. Like, you've been doing this so long, yet you're still getting so much inventory in the door. It's just, it comes back to the basics. Like,
Mhm.
let's get your mailers out and just, meet people, talk to people, talk to your buyers, get things done, and don't worry about the smaller things, like even your processes. Sometimes
Mhm.
just stick to the basics. So um, another one that I want to talk to you about, that I think a lot of people are sort of coming across in terms of challenges, is having a team or hiring VAs. And it seems like
Mhm.
a lot of people want to hire VAs to do every single little bit of their business. It's possible. It's very possible. But you still need to be there to handle business. But anyways, let's come back to the VA side of things. You mentioned that you actually don't use a VA. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And who? I mean, is there somebody else helping you out with the business?
Yeah, my wife helps me.
Yeah.
She is a CPA, so
Okay.
that helps.
Yeah.
And she handles all the terms, customers. She
Okay.
also handles a lot of the documents. She'll get deeds and contracts
Yep.
ready for me when
Yep.
when it's time for that. So she helps with a lot of stuff and some of the some of the list stuff too.
Yeah.
Getting a
Eh,
list ready for mailing. She helps with that, and I do basically everything else, but I just try to streamline things, and I try to go more towards automate as opposed to delegate, I guess.
Yeah.
And the main reason for that is I've tried VAs in the past, and I just got way too aggravated with them. I I there's a land specific VA company I'm not going to mention, because I'm not that mean of a guy. But they I I decided to try them out,
Yeah.
and I wanted to try their due diligence feature for
Mm.
one. And so I gave them, I don't know, I think 10 properties that I already owned, and I knew inside and out
Right.
everything about them. And when the due diligence packages came back, so much stuff on every single one was wrong. I mean, they were saying there was natural property out in the middle of nowhere. They said there was a natural gas lines within 15 feet and crazy things that just didn't even make any sense. And picture, and then as far as sample ads or whatever, getting them to do some ads that I didn't really need, but I wanted to see. I just was not happy with it at all.
Sure.
And you know, I see the benefit, especially if you're doing it part time while you have another job. It's I can tell that if you get the right one, definitely, or assemble the right team, definitely a benefit. But for me, I seem to be doing fine without them, and I'm no need to change right at the moment.
Yeah. And how has it been like? I know a lot of investors also work with their spouses or family members, brothers, sisters. How has that been? Has it been a challenge, or have you guys sort of you
Uh,
guys sort of complement each other?
it's we get along best in the working environment, I think. But and my office is in one end of the house, hers is in the other end of the house. So we're not like in each other's face. I don't have to talk on the phone and have her talking on the phone or any. have any kind of interruptions or anything. So it works just fine. And her part is certainly not full time
Sure.
by any means. So it gives her more time to deal with the now homeschooling and all that fun stuff that has been added to our lives. So,
I've worked with my wife as well before, and it's funny that you mentioned, yeah, we get along best at that point in time. Mind you, we do get along very well, but when we have a common goal that we're working towards under the same household, it just sort of reinforces the relationship. I think a lot of people are scared off of actually working with their spouse. So, it's worth, searching in the family, seeing if anybody's willing to get involved.
Mhm.
There's just some sort of understanding. It could be a cultural thing too. Sometimes working with VAs, it can be very challenging, and you have to be very careful, right, with the type of task you delegate to them. And are you
Mhm.
hiring someone on stateside or overseas? So I can understand, and I've been in that position where I felt very frustrated, and I'm actually in the process of letting go another VA right now, and it can be very challenging. So I get where you're coming from, but it's great that you do have somebody who's helping you with the business, which is
Mhm.
your wife. So, and of
Yeah.
course, it helps when they've got an accounting background as
Yeah,
well. So,
absolutely. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster long ago for me
sure.
trying to keep track of our terms customers for sure.
Mike, what else have I missed here in terms of challenges or struggles or just sort of the real side about running a business or specifically a land business? Do you have sort of any
No,
general advice?
I think it's really mindset. And there's been times in my life in the past that I've let fear guide decisions that I've made.
Sure.
Um, so obviously, as you build a business, and especially a terms business with lots of customers and lots of properties that have taxes to be paid, and then you see things in the news about economic crashes or whatever, you really have to just be as fearless as possible and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and don't let all the outside noise affect what you're doing.
That's a great piece of
Yeah.
advice. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of outside noise, a lot of hype about certain things. Um, yeah, and I fall trapped to that all the time. And you're right, it is a sort of a mental game when it comes down to running a business. So, and that's what I appreciate about you so much. You just sort of again expressing your honesty about things and just being upfront. And it's not as glorious as everybody makes it sound out there. Uh,
No.
it really isn't, and it takes a lot of work to get something up and running.
Mhm.
And you almost kind of just go in and day out, and you just keep chipping it away slowly. So there's no shortcut to anything. There's no one magic formula. Mike can tell you this again. He's been around doing this for many years now. There is no magic formula. No matter who tells you that, there just isn't. Um,
Mhm.
Mike, thanks very much again for coming on the show. I'd love to have you on again in the future, share an update with us. For those of you guys that are watching or listening at a later time, you have any questions, please feel free to join our REI conversion community for land investors Facebook group, and you'll find Mike in there. If you have any questions, we'll post this in there. Feel free to shoot him a message or make a
Yep.
comment. Just allow others to chime in on the conversation. But once again, thanks again for coming on the show, Mike.
Thank you, Jesse. Great to
Happy to
be
have
here.
you on here.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Before you stop this podcast or head to the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Conversion Podcast. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate an awesome review and rating on whichever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the REI Conversion Podcast or this specific episode that may help them on their investing journey. Once again, thanks very much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.